our last show, and he had 5 scholarships. He was real smart, and he was the band president, and he was the first chair trumpet. And I'd always been first chair, even though I was a girl, but he was super good, better than me. And then there was Victor Banks, me, and him, and we were the 3 jets for the school at James Madison. James Madison was brand new that year. It's a totally different school.
Wait,
I was a trumpet player and a majorette. We were trumpets.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you were trumpet.
Oh, you didn't?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, I did not know that part about you, that you played a trumpet. I knew you were a majorette. See, at our school, you couldn't be both. You couldn't be a majorette and be a trumpet player. You had to pick the band because they went to band camp and they all, for when they did the marches and the halftime. So you couldn't be a trumpet and in the band. But that doesn't make sense. In the winter they did concerts, so they didn't have the majorettes. So maybe, I guess you could be in the band, and in the school year you play. Did your school do concerts? Band concerts?
Well, yeah.
Where they played for other students?
Well, I was in my 9th grade in the first band. I couldn't wait through junior high, 7th and 8th at Westminster Junior High in Westminster, Louisiana. But when my mom, I was in the 9th grade, and I couldn't wait to get there. And, I went to boot camp, and I tried out and, of course, made the A band in the 9th grade. But what I'm talking about is when Mom moved us to Houston was the end of the 9th grade, and so in the 10th grade I started brand new in 1965 into the 10th grade, and it was a brand new high school, so we didn't have band camp because we didn't even have the school open, so we didn't even have band uniforms. We had to order those. But in both of all the bands that I was in, junior high and high, you had to be in the band and play an instrument to be a majorette. Because remember, now you may be thinking of the Flag Corps or some girls group at your school, I don't know. But interestingly enough, we only had band majorettes when I was in Louisiana. But when in Houston, we had the band majorettes, and I had to try out and beat different girls out. And then there was only 4 of us. So we got 4, and we had mother help to make our uniforms. So I met him when we all started that brand new James Madison High School. So, but I had to play in order to be a majorette. So in Pennsylvania, that's curious. I strongly believe in band and PE. I loved PE and I loved band. Those are my 2 favorite subjects. So, but you're saying that you couldn't be a musician?
Well, I have to rethink that. I know that during the summer you couldn't be both. If you were a majorette, or we called them a letterette, they had the ABALON letters that you would flag and do routine. You couldn't be in the band and be a majorette in the summer, but I guess in the winter you could because there wasn't a conflict. Now I was a cheerleader. So I couldn't be in the band and be a cheerleader because the cheerleaders were out there during the game, both the basketball and the football games. We were doing routines and stuff like that. So I was a cheerleader, and I loved it. But I didn't. There was a lot of politics even back then, and I only made it for 2 years. And the other girl that was more popular won the head cheerleader. But the girls went up to me and said, well, they've always been real creative. So I would make these routines that were just way beyond even what other people were doing in other schools. I was very creative. And they go, we wish we would have had you because you're the one that's most creative. So that, I think, is part of my connection to extraterrestrials, is being a manifestor and creativity. I have high creativity. So that's what we were talking about, the first part, creativity, manifestation. So anyway, so you got to be, but what happened when you were out, doing your routines at the football game? You couldn't be playing the trumpet at the same time.
No, you play the trumpet all the time, but then during the football games, we would go out instead of marching, outside we had our own football field laid out. The majorettes would practice and do our routines, but during the winter, we had symphony, and I played a French horn then. So we had the symphony, and we did, inside the building, we had a big, huge theater where the art department, worked out on the stage. I always wanted to be in that too. So I got theater after I was an adult, but I couldn't do theater.
What
I
year
had to
was
take
that,
a language.
TJ?
Which year?
What year was
I
that?
started in 1965.
65. Okay. Were you in Houston in 72?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Robert and I were in Houston in 72.
Oh, yeah, I didn't leave Houston. Yeah, where did you live? I think we discussed this, but isn't that interesting? Yeah, we're going to find out with our Love and Light community all our past history and where do our paths cross, because we do that in metaphysics and, with our esoterics and our spiritual community too. But the Love and Light community, I didn't really tune into the difference until the 70s, but I remember my children told me I had tarot decks way before they were born, and they remember picking decks, and I had no clue. I thought I didn't get in, but I guess what it is, I didn't get my first real astrology reading and chart and pay for it till 84. So I thought when I started 84, but you know how we forget little things, but when you go back in your linear timeline and then people help you. But I picked up,
exactly.
I guess, my tarot somewhere. But Mother was psychic, so that's how, I got into all that. But 1965 was the year James Madison High School opened up, and we played against Westbury, and Deborah went to Robert E. Lee. It was Robert E. Lee, and in West Monroe we were the Confederates. And we had a rebel flag, the West Monroe High School.
What year did you graduate from high school?
67, but I had to go back and get a GED because we talked about high 11th. My husband, it was during the Vietnam War.
That's right.
Yeah, and I was in the high 11th.
About that before you came in.
Yeah, so it was
What's
the
Vietnam
War.
What do you mean the high 11? What's the high 11? What's that mean?
I went and took tests. They let me out. They didn't let pregnant women because I got pregnant. I was pregnant in 67, so I had Angie early. She was supposed to be May 68, and I had her early, March 25th, my first daughter. So, but that's when I was hanging out with Joan Robinson Hill and all that Suzanne was tapping into 2 or 3 weeks ago on one of those shows we did. So it all goes together. We just have to put it in I guess, or like Karen said, what year? Well, Karen, in 72, where did you live? Did you know where Westbury was? Or the Southwest?
No, Robert was working for Ellington Air Force Base, and that's in Pasadena.
Yeah, I lived in Pasadena on Red Bluff Road, if you remember Pasadena. Do you remember Red Bluff Road?
No, I didn't live there. I checked into an apartment to live off of Westheimer, and so. Oh
wow, way downtown, Westheimer.
So he was just on the west side of the tollway, and so all those apartments were coming new. Yeah, so he was realizing that he wasn't going to stay at Ellington, and so then I moved back to Fort Worth, and then he moved on to Glen Road. So we just kind of moved around, but we weren't living together. We would just be together down there. But that was in Pasadena. But those times were wonderful in Houston, and all the music and everything. Gosh,
I lived off of Westheimer.
Yeah, you lived off of Westheimer.
Right across from the Galleria, if you remember. It's probably still there, Galleria Mall. I lived right across the street. There was a strip center, and then right behind there were some townhouses. And I think I paid $8.75 a month. Well, it was behind the shopping center. It was behind the shopping center.
Yeah, behind the shopping center, right.
There were
that's interesting, and I think Deborah said she was in Houston at that time, didn't she?
I don't know. I can't remember now.
Deborah DeFranco
she was
talking about it. Well, she's Deborah's not going to join us till after September sometime, because she's working on her garden. She's creating a seed farm, and we'll put that up. She's going to be selling her seeds, so we'll get that linked and help support her with her seed business. We're all recreating ourselves because of COVID, right? So she's developed a seed business. Anyway, she'll be back, but she said because she has to take advantage of the sunlight, and everything, and growing season and harvesting season. So she said, I'm sorry, I just have to take off for about a month here. So he says to say hello, and she'll be back again in the future. So, anyway, we'll get her back, and we'll connect the dots. But so we all may have crossed paths. It's kind of like that 6 degrees of separation. We may all have crossed paths long ago.
Oh, well, we're all baby boomers.
I've never been. Yeah, but I've never been to Texas. I had never been west of the Mississippi until I was 39 years old, and I flew all the way to to Oahu. So that's my connection there. But I didn't even get to California for another 2 or 3 years after that. But then I started going around the world. So we have this connection with all of us. So go ahead. So
and it's all based around the military, isn't that interesting?
Fascinating. So
when did we all?
11 and.
Go ahead.
You said you were 11. You were 11. What does that mean? I was 11. Is some kind of ranking in the military or something?
Who said that?
You said something about, and I was an 11.
She said something about her high number. What was a high number, DJ?
Oh, she wanted to know. Oh, like you do, 9th, 10th. Well, back then, it was either you were beginning the grade or you were the end. They called it high 11th. I guess that was after fall. I was in my last part of the 11th grade when I got married, and I didn't get to finish my GED. 12.
Cool.
And what year was that? Is that
67. 1960s. There was I don't think New Age books or Love and Light community. I mean, I learned about New Age and stuff through the bookstores, but I don't remember going to anything until.
The one they had back then was on Montrose, off of Montrose.
That's where I went. Area. Yeah, that was the Aquarian Age bookstore.
Yeah, I remember that. I sure do. And I graduated a year early from high school. I graduated in 68, should have graduated in 69. And then I was with Robert and I were in Houston in 72. And you were probably down there too. Were you in the military at that time?
My husband worked at NASA. And he went to University of Texas, Houston, and then he worked at NASA, and he worked for Gerlach Entertainment Agency. And that's when I met Bob Hope and Bing Crosby and Nancy Ames and all those people.
We were all down there at the same time. That's interesting. And then when Robert...
Well, I didn't graduate till 72. So I'm younger. I didn't quite make the connection.
Oh, you're a lot younger
my
than me.
My sister graduated in 66. My first husband graduated in 69. So I'm behind you guys. Yeah. So, all right.
Yeah.
I was there.
Well, I started early though. I was Janet. I started early at 4 because I wanted to go to school and I was smart. So they let me start because I was going to be 5 by the end of the year, December 26th. And so I was born 51, but I grew up with all the 52 babies. So, let's see, 50 babies, I guess, because they were all, I was younger than all my schoolmates. So they must have been 1950 children, right? Because I don't get it. All I know is I was always a year younger than everybody. So, in the first years, I had to be as smart as they were, and I was tall as they were because I was a tall child. But I got to start at 4.
I hear a phone.
I do too.
What the hell is that?
That's an ET connection.
Do we still have you?
Probably a signal.
Oh.
Is that your phone? Janet?